Right now on a dealership floor in America, a 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 is sitting under fluorescent lights with a sticker of $21,349. Here is what you won't see coming. It is quietly transacting for $11,500. That gap did not happen by accident. It happened because buyers walked right past it. There are 9 more machines just like it sitting on lots across the country. Let us start counting down. Starting things off quietly. At number 10 is the Sportster 883 Super Low 2015. This bike got slapped with a label it never actually deserved. Beginner bike, that is it. That is the entire crime it committed, and it has been paying for it ever since. Original sticker was $8,249. Today it is transacting for $3,800 to $4,800. That is a massive chunk shaved off, and the bike underneath did not get any worse to justify it. Here is what actually happened. Buyers walking into a Harley showroom want to feel like they have arrived. They want the big 1200cc engine. They want the Iron 883 with its blacked out attitude. The Super Low gets treated like the little sibling nobody invited to the party, even though it is running the exact same rubber-mounted Evolution platform underneath. Is it a real motorcycle underneath the stigma? Absolutely. It has a lower center of gravity than almost anything else in the Sportster lineup, an easier reach to the ground for shorter riders, and genuinely excellent fuel economy for a V-twin. It is stable at low speeds, forgiving in traffic, and mechanically identical under the skin to bikes selling for thousands more. Insurance companies know something buyers do not. The Super Low carries a lower premium than the Iron 883 in most states, despite sharing the same frame and nearly the same engine internals. That is real money saved every single year, stacked on top of the discount you already got at purchase, and resale buyers who skip the badge. Snobbery tend to keep these longer than any other Sportster variant, partly because the low seat height means spouses and new riders actually stick with the hobby instead of trading out of fear within the first year. While you are down there checking the frame, take a look at the belt drive tension too. Like all rubber-mounted Sportsters, it runs a durable final drive belt instead of a chain, which means less maintenance overall, but a neglected belt that has been running too loose or too tight for years can wear unevenly, and a replacement is not a 5-minute job. Ask the dealer directly when it was last inspected, and do not accept a shrug as an answer. Before you sign anything, get down on your knees and actually look at the lower frame rails and the exhaust shields. This thing rides so low that scrape damage from overly ambitious cornering is extremely common. A previous owner who liked to lean it over at intersections will have left evidence, and that evidence is cheap to spot if you just look. Now, if you are serious about walking into that dealership prepared, if you want a real inspection checklist sitting in your back pocket before you sign a single piece of paper, this next part is exactly for you. 1 bike down, 9 to go, and the next one on our list has a nickname that literally means diet. You read that correctly, and the story behind it is even more ridiculous than it sounds. Imagine standing in front of a bike you want, the seller swearing it's perfect. That's where riders overpay by thousands on a $10,000 bike. Our buyer's kit tells you what it's really worth, your fair price, and when to walk away. A wrong bike costs thousands. This kit, just $49. The easiest money you'll ever save. Scan the QR on the right or tap the link in the description. Let's get that bike you've always wanted for even cheaper. Joining the list at number 9 is the Dyna Switchback, 2012. Riders nicknamed this bike the Diet Road King, and it was never meant as a compliment. Touring purists said it was too small to be taken seriously. Standard Dyna riders said the floorboards and the heavy front wheel looked awkward and bolted on. Everybody had an opinion about it. Nobody had their wallet open. MSRP was $15,999. It is moving today for $6,500 to $7,500. That is nearly half off the original sticker for a bike that runs a genuinely strong twin Cam 103 engine under all that criticism. The whole idea behind the switchback was clever. It was supposed to be a dyna that could quick change between a stripped-down commuter and a legitimate weekend tour using a detachable windshield and quick-release saddlebags. Buyers did not understand it. They wanted a bike to commit to a lane, not switch lanes on them. Is it good underneath the ridicule? Genuinely, yes. It is a light chassis with real touring muscle bolted underneath, and the convertible nature that confused buyers in the showroom becomes a huge advantage once you actually own one and realize you do not need two different motorcycles for two different weekends. The Dyna frame was discontinued entirely after 2017 when Harley moved touring-adjacent Dynas over to the Softail platform, and that matters more than most shoppers realize. Parts support for the older twin. Cam Dyna family is still deep and cheap because so many were built, but the specific quick-detach hardware on the switchback is getting harder to source new. Grab one now while aftermarket suppliers are still making the brackets, because in 5 more years that convenience feature could turn into a hunting expedition on forms instead. Before you buy, take it out for a real, honest test ride and pay close attention to engine vibration at idle. Many of these units need an aftermarket front motor mount installed just to smooth things out properly, and a dealer who has not addressed it will let you feel every bit of that buzz through the handlebars, coming through quickly. At number 8 is the Street Rod 2006. This one is a forgotten spin-off that almost nobody remembers existed in the first place. It is a V-Rod variant built with mid-controls and a taller seat height, and that single combination managed to annoy cruiser riders and intimidate sport riders at the exact same time. Nobody claimed it as their own. Everybody complained about it from the sidelines. The original MSRP sat at $14,995. Today it sells for $5,000 to $6,000. For a bike carrying inverted forks, Brembo brakes, and more horsepower than a standard V-Rod, that price is borderline criminal. Think about that for a second. This was Harley trying to build something with genuine cornering ability, something that could actually keep pace on a twisty road instead of just looking imposing in a parking lot. And the market punished it for trying. Harley only built this first-generation street rod for 2 model years before pulling it from the lineup, which means production numbers are low compared to any other V-Rod variant on the road. Low production usually means high prices down the line once collectors catch on, and that is already starting to happen with the early 2006 V-Rod itself. This street rod is still flying under that radar, which is exactly the kind of window a smart buyer wants to catch before it closes. Is it worth it? If you physically fit it, absolutely yes. Sharper steering geometry, better stopping power than almost anything else wearing the bar and shield badge from that era, and a genuinely sporty character that most cruiser buyers never even get to experience. The belt final drive on this platform also deserves a mention. It runs the same tooth belt design found across most modern Harleys, which means no greasy chain to maintain, but the enclosed design hides wear from casual glances. Pull the belt cover if the dealer will let you, because a cracked or glazed belt on a sportier bike like this one gets stressed harder than it would on a standard cruiser. Before signing anything, crawl underneath the rear tail section and take a real look. This bike hides its fuel cell in an unusual underseat location, and cracks or leaks around that specialized unit are neither cheap nor simple to repair once they start. Up next is a bike that had Porsche engineers involved in its design, and somehow that was the exact reason it flopped in showrooms. Yes, you read that right, and it makes no sense until you hear the full story. Revving into view at number 7 is the V-Rod 2002. Porsche engineers co-designed this engine from the ground up. You would think that pedigree alone would be a massive selling point splashed across every brochure. Instead, the core Harley crowd abandoned it almost immediately because it revved high, sounded like a superbike, and completely abandoned the classic rumbling V-twin exhaust note that traditionalists consider sacred. MSRP was $16,995. It transacts today for $6,000 to $7,500. That is nearly half off for what is genuinely one of the most mechanically sound engines Harley-Davidson has ever put its name on. Is it any good underneath all that heresy? It is a masterpiece, plain and simple. These engines routinely blow past 100,000 miles without needing a major rebuild. That level of reliability is something most cruisers in this price range can only dream about achieving. The Revolution engine put out roughly 115 horsepower from the factory, which was unheard of for a Harley back in 2002. It was, by a wide margin, the most powerful production Harley ever built up to that point. Collectors are finally starting to catch on to that fact, and the first-year 2002 models with their distinctive round headlight are beginning to climb in price on enthusiast forums, even while general dealer floor prices have not caught up yet. One thing to check before you buy: dig through the service records specifically for valve clearance inspections. Unlike a standard pushrod Harley that most mechanics can service blindfolded, this overhead cam engine requires tedious shim adjustments at the valves, and skipping that maintenance for years is exactly how unsuspecting owners end up with an expensive and completely avoidable surprise. The next bike on this list looked like it wandered off a racetrack and got lost on its way to a boulevard, and that is exactly why almost nobody bought one when it was new. Leaning into the list at number 6 is the Harley-Davidson XR 1200 2009. This bike had the audacity to give a Harley genuine lean angle, aggressive foot pegs, and handling manners that could embarrass plenty of dedicated sport bikes. Sport bike riders did not want anything with a Harley badge on the tank. Cruiser riders did not want the attitude or the unfamiliar riding position. It fell straight into a gap that nobody was standing in, and it has been sitting there ever since. Sticker price was $10,799. It is going now for $6,500 to $7,500, which is a serious discount for a bike this genuinely capable. Is it fun underneath all the confusion it caused? Genuinely, yes, and then some. It has downdraft fuel injection borrowed from serious performance applications, high-performance Nissan brakes that actually work under hard braking, and real cornering capability that most traditional cruisers simply cannot touch. This whole bike existed because of Harley's own flat track and Sportster road racing program, and it shows the moment you tip it into a corner. The racier XR1200X variant that followed a couple years later added inverted forks and a remapped ECU for even sharper response. And those examples, when you can find them, command a slight premium over a standard XR1200. Either version will make you question everything you thought you knew about what a Harley is supposed to feel like in a corner. Worth noting too, this engine shares much of its bottom end with the standard Sportster line, so parts availability for the basics like clutch plates, starters, and charging components is not a problem. It is only the sport-specific bodywork and suspension bits borrowed from the racing program that get harder to source, so factor that in if you ever plan to crash it, even lightly. Before buying, check whether the fuel tank has expanded outward from its original shape. These composite plastic tanks do not get along well with ethanol-blended fuel, and warping right out of their mounting brackets is a real, well-documented, and surprisingly common issue on this model. Number 5 brings us back to the classic cruiser world entirely, and this one got skipped simply because it committed the unforgivable sin of being too plain. Sliding in unnoticed at number 5 is the Dyna Superglide 2001. This bike is basically invisible on the used market, and it has been invisible for years. Buyers hunting through the Dyna lineup skip straight past it, chasing a street bob or a lowrider instead, leaving this base model sitting completely unnoticed on lot after lot. MSRP was $11,995. Today it sells for $4,500 to $5,500, which honestly feels like a typo the first time you see it. Here is the twist nobody talks about. Underneath that plain exterior is the exact same engine, the exact same transmission, and the exact same handling chassis found in every single one of those flashier, far more expensive variants sitting 2 rows over. You are effectively paying for paint and badges you do not even need. Because it is the plainest Dyna ever sold, it is also the easiest one to work on and the cheapest one to customize. There is no factory windshield mount to remove, no passenger backrest bracket to unbolt, and no extra trim to strip off before you start building it into whatever you actually want. Plenty of custom builders specifically hunt for bass. Super glides for exactly this reason, which tells you something about how the people who actually know bikes view this one compared to how the showroom crowd views it. Before you buy, insist that the seller or dealer pull the timing cover so you can inspect the cam chain tensioners directly. Early twin-cam '88 engines used plastic tensioners that are known to fail catastrophically if they are neglected long enough, and that failure is not a cheap one to walk away from. We are officially halfway through this list, and the next bike was stripped down on purpose by Harley themselves, so deliberately bare bones that plenty of traditionalists genuinely assumed it was some kind of factory mistake. Stripping things back at number 4 is the Electra Glide Standard, 2020. Harley built this one without a radio, without a passenger seat, without an infotainment screen glowing on the dash, and they did it entirely on purpose. Luxury-focused touring buyers took one look at the spec sheet and walked straight over to a more decked-out model without a second thought. The original sticker was $18,999. It is now transacting for $12,500 to $14,000, which is still a serious touring bike for serious touring money saved. Is it a real touring machine underneath the bare-bones approach? For purists, it is genuinely phenomenal. You get the full Milwaukee 8 107 touring chassis, minus all the heavy electronics that would otherwise be weighing down the front fairing and dulling the steering response at low speed. Harley shaved off roughly 100 pounds compared to a fully loaded Ultra Limited, and that weight difference is something you can feel the second you tip it into a parking lot U-turn. Harley only kept this stripped-down trim in the lineup for a few model years before quietly dropping it, which means supply is already tightening. Riders who value steering feel over dashboard gadgets are starting to realize that, and some are now actively hunting these down instead of waiting for one to wander onto a lot. It is also worth pointing out that this bare-bones approach means fewer electronic modules to potentially fail down the road. Fewer sensors, fewer wiring harnesses, fewer things a dealer technician has to plug a diagnostic computer into when something goes wrong. For riders tired of touring bikes that feel more like rolling computers than motorcycles, that simplicity is part of the appeal, not a missing feature. Fuel capacity sits at 6 gallons, giving riders a realistic 230-mile range per tank on the highway. Braking comes from dual 4-piston calipers up front, shared across the entire touring lineup. Seat height measures a manageable 29.4 inches, making it friendlier for shorter riders than bulkier touring siblings. Before signing anything, confirm whether a previous owner chopped or altered the factory wiring harness while trying to jam an aftermarket stereo head unit into a bike that was never designed to have one. That kind of amateur shortcut has a habit of coming back to haunt the next owner in ways that are expensive to trace. But before we get to the top 3, if you have ever bought a used bike and found out about a hidden problem the hard way, sitting on the side of the road, wondering what you missed, you are going to want to see exactly what we are about to show you. All right, now that you know the secret to making a purchase you won't regret, picture it. You buy the bike. It looked clean. It sounded great. 3 weeks later, the bills start. A worn chain, tired forks, a service the seller never mentioned. That's thousands gone on a bike you already paid full price for. Our inspection checklist catches every one of those before you pay, walking the bike like a mechanic. Spend $49 now or lose thousands later. Scan the QR on the right or tap the link in the description. Don't let a hidden problem drain your wallet. Let's get back to it, because the next bike on this list got punished for something even weirder than being too plain or too bare bones. This one got ignored just for sitting awkwardly between 2 bikes everybody else wanted more. Squeezing in between at number 3 is the Sportster 1200 Custom 2014. This bike is trapped in a genuine blind spot between 2 more famous siblings. Riders wanting something nimble and light go straight for the smaller iron 883. Riders wanting raw 1200cc power go for the aggressively styled 48 instead. This one just sits quietly in the middle, forgotten by both crowds at once. MSRP was $10,649. It is selling used for $5,000 to $6,200, and there is very little reason for that gap other than plain old showroom neglect. Is it good underneath the indecision? The post-2004 rubber-mounted Evolution engine is incredibly durable, genuinely bulletproof in the way Harley enthusiasts actually mean it, and completely free of the harsh frame-shaking vibrations that plague a lot of older Sportster models. The custom trim runs electronic sequential port fuel injection as standard, which means smoother cold starts and better throttle response than the carbureted Sportsters that came before it, without any of the tuning headaches that older carbureted bikes can bring into winter storage season. It also carries a larger fuel tank than the 48, which translates directly into a longer range between stops, something that matters a lot more on a real road trip than it ever shows up on a spec sheet. Before you buy, check the rocker box gaskets closely for any signs of oil weeping around the edges. These air-cooled engines can warp thin factory gaskets over time if the bike has been ridden hard or run hot repeatedly, and that is an easy, cheap thing to catch before you sign. The next bike was partially built overseas, and that single detail alone tanked its reputation before a single traditionalist even bothered to throw a leg over it. Breaking ranks at number 2 is the Street 750, 2017. Traditionalists rejected this bike almost on principle before it even hit the showroom floor. Liquid-cooled engine instead of the classic air-cooled rumble, non-traditional styling that broke from decades of familiar silhouettes, partial assembly overseas, specifically aimed at entry-level riders who had never owned a motorcycle before. That combination was more than enough to make die-hard fans turn their backs completely. Sticker price was $7,549. Today it sells for $3,500 to $4,500, an incredibly low entry point for a genuine Harley-Davidson badge. Is it secretly great underneath all that resentment? Yes, without much hesitation. The liquid-cooled Revolution X engine is exceptionally smooth, stays remarkably cool in heavy stop-and-go city traffic, and handles noticeably tighter than most traditional cruisers, twice its physical size and weight. Harley actually raced a modified version of this same platform in the Moto America Harley-Davidson Street Fighter series, which is not something you hear about a beginner bike very often. The smaller Street 500 sibling was discontinued first, which quietly left the 750 as the last survivor of the whole Street family, before Harley pulled the entire lineup from the United States market altogether. That makes this specific model the final word on a platform. Harley will never build again, and that kind of last-of-its-kind status usually adds value over time instead of taking it away. Maintenance costs on the Street 750 also run lower than almost anything else in the Harley lineup, simply because it shares a lot of its service parts and fluids with generic liquid-cooled platforms, rather than proprietary Harley-only components. That means a wider pool of independent mechanics can work on it confidently, not just dealership techs charging dealership rates. Before signing anything, inspect the wiring harnesses and switch gears carefully with your own eyes, not just a quick glance. Early production runs were prone to loose connections and cheap plastic housing failures, and those small issues tend to snowball into bigger electrical headaches if they go unaddressed for too long. And now the biggest, boldest, and most misunderstood bike on this entire list, the exact machine we opened this video with. Topping the list at number 1 is the FXDR-114, 2019. This is the bike we mentioned right at the start. Too progressive for its own good and too far ahead of what the traditional Harley crowd was ready to accept. A massive plastic intake dominating the tank area, clip-on style handlebars borrowed straight from performance bikes, a cast aluminum rear swing arm that looked like it belonged on something imported from Europe. Traditional chrome-loving Harley buyers looked at it like it had landed from another planet entirely, and plenty of them said so loudly. Sticker price was $21,349. It is transacting right now for $11,500 to $13,000, nearly half off for what might be the single most capable factory cruiser Harley has built in years. Is it actually good underneath the controversy? It is an absolute powerhouse, and there is really no other way to describe it. The massive Milwaukee 8 114 engine, paired with genuine weight-saving aluminum components, throughout the chassis, delivers blistering straight-line acceleration that most cruisers in this category cannot even approach, let alone match. This is, by a wide margin, the quickest factory Softail Harley has ever sold in a straight line, easily outrunning a Fat Bob or a Lowrider S in a quarter-mile pull. Despite sharing the same basic engine family, that performance gap exists because Harley trimmed weight everywhere it could, from the aluminum subframe right down to the forged wheels, which is exactly the kind of engineering effort that usually shows up on a bike costing $30,000, not $11,500. One more thing worth knowing, the forged aluminum wheels on this bike are not a cheap replacement if one gets curbed or cracked, so it pays to walk around the bike slowly and check every wheel lip for scuffs before you even think about the engine. A bike this aggressive tends to attract riders who lean it into corners harder than the average cruiser owner, so wheel damage shows up here more often than on a laid-back tourer. Before you buy, check that massive 240mm rear tire closely for uneven wear patterns or any signs of flat spotting. Replacing that specific wide rubber profile is not cheap by any stretch, so factor the eventual cost directly into your negotiation before you agree on a final number. And as a bonus, a closing chapter, how and when to actually buy these. Here is the part almost nobody explains properly when they talk about buying a used or leftover motorcycle. Timing is half the entire negotiation, sometimes more than half. Dealerships operate under monthly and quarterly sales targets set from above, whether they advertise that fact or not. Walk in during the last few days of the month, and you are talking to a salesperson who is genuinely under pressure to close numbers before an internal deadline hits. Walk in during the final days of a quarter, meaning late March, late June, late September, or late December, and that same pressure multiplies significantly. Ask one simple question before you say anything else at all. How long has this specific unit actually been sitting on your floor? A bike that has been sitting for 90 days or more is not just inventory anymore in the dealer's eyes. It is a genuine liability sitting on their books. Floor plan financing costs real money. Every single day that a bike does not sell, quietly draining profit whether anyone mentions it out loud or not. The longer a specific unit sits there collecting dust, the more room you personally have to negotiate a real discount. Combine the two factors together, end of month or end of quarter, plus a specific unit that has been parked on the floor for months already, and you are not just walking away with a small discount. You are walking into a conversation with a dealer who genuinely wants to say yes to whatever reasonable number you put on the table. That is how you turn "nobody wants this bike" into "nobody wants this bike except me, and I got it for thousands under sticker while everyone else walked right past it." Since you know these Harleys that nobody wants but you should still be buying, click on the next video on your screen to keep the ride going because you do not want to miss what comes next. And while at it, don't forget to like this video and make sure you join our tribe by clicking that subscribe button.